if you enjoy something, I know what it feels like to enjoy things. So I'm not going to try to rob that from another person. And this is in the
You don't
context
have the
of
power to rob
criticism.
that from people.
Well, sure I do. If
I don't.
and I've gotten these comments before. I've seen I love this anime and I saw this video and wow, I saw all the flaws in it and now I dislike it or I like it less. I think you can absolutely rob somebody of their enjoyment if you
Well, it's up
press
to
them
them. You
hard
can
enough.
convince people, but it's not like you're forcing them into doing anything.
Yeah, I would take issue with the word rob. It's like, would it not be consensual for them to engage in your video, especially if the title is like critique of or review of or something is bad? Is it
No,
really
but that's
robbing rather than
them.
enlightening?
I mean, I think that's an interesting take on it, enlightening, but I don't feel like I have really the right to do that. I mean, I say my opinion, and whether or not you agree or disagree is, ultimately up to you. So it's like I don't the focus I take with my videos and my critique videos, like I did of Rainbow Six Siege, is I have these problems with the game. You might not have these problems with the game, but for me, here's why they are a detriment to the game. You don't have to agree with me. I guess we can even argue the merits of my complaints, but at the end of the day, these are just my thoughts, and that's the approach to critique I take. That everything is
But
just
what if that
what I
makes
see.
people enjoy Rainbow Six less?
Well, then it makes them enjoy it less, just like it makes me enjoy it less. But
How is
I
that any
mean,
different than the previous examples?
there are plenty of people who would never. I mean, there are plenty of people who agree with my complaints about Siege, and there are people who, if you go on the Rainbow Six subreddit right now, would never agree with a single thing I said. And all the unbalanced garbage in the game makes the game more fun for them. I recently did a video on Call of Duty where there's a lot of people who like Black Ops 4 for the reasons that I hate the game. So
So why would that not apply to the previous example of the anime?
Can you remind me of the
Well,
example?
you don't want to. You said you didn't want to rob people of the way they feel about it.
Sure, but
It seems like a double standard in a really obvious kind of way. You said you don't want to rob people of their enjoyment of the anime. Why would you not want
oh,
to
okay. So
not
yeah,
rob
no,
people of their enjoyment
okay,
of
I
Rainbow
get what you're
Six?
saying. When I
Yeah.
post, well, when I feel like when I post a video on YouTube, yeah, I can get shared by algorithm, yeah, I can get shared by that, but my videos, specifically the ones I've done on anime, have had this very strange effect where people start taking them as gospel and Bible, and people just start repeating the talking points and repeating the talking points. At a certain point, it just went well beyond me to where I was seeing these talking points spewed everywhere on
Well,
the
they must be
internet.
very good
So,
talking points, and people
I
must
mean,
agree with them.
I guess,
And if
but
people agree with them, then
sure, but I
good. That
don't.
means you made good points. If someone liked the Holocaust, for instance, would you not want to rob them of their enjoyment of that?
I mean, I don't think people can enjoy the Holocaust
Of
considering
course
that
they
they weren't
can.
there.
Uh,
I mean, how?
There,
How would you enjoy the Holocaust if you weren't there to enjoy
dude,
it?
it's
There,
subjective, so of course it's.
I mean,
we can
what are
substitute the
we?
Holocaust for the concept of the Holocaust.
What are we talking? Okay, so you like killing Jews? Is that
We
the?
already know that there were
I
people
mean,
who
if it
existed
really,
who.
yeah, I mean, we know people enjoyed that. Is it not? Do you think it's good to rob them of their enjoyment of that?
Well, how would you go about robbing them of their enjoyment of that by killing them?
Well, humanizing the
same
Jewish
way
people.
that you rob people of their enjoyment of an anime. The exact same.
No, I don't think those are nearly the same thing. I think
They are the
a
exact same
genocide is
thing.
is far different from enjoying a fucking
No,
work of
no. They're not
fiction.
the exact same thing to like, but the same way that you would rob
They would.
someone's enjoyment of the
That's
concept of the
not that's
Holocaust
not the
is
same
the
concept.
it
What?
literally is. Of course it
You would
is.
have.
How?
The
Of
difference
course
would
it is.
be
It's just
a
the difference in
significant
the
moral
extremes.
judgment, right? You consider it far more important to consider people humane than it is to enjoy an anime.
Yeah, I
Well,
think one is
Rags's
certainly more
concept,
weighty than the other.
yeah,
They're
Rags's
the exact
concept
same
is a
thing.
fundamental like. So Just Right argued to us, to me and Wolf, that we shouldn't necessarily break a piece of media down that people are enjoying because you can rob enjoyment from the world. That's the words he actually used. So the idea that it's almost a bad, it's just strictly a bad to explain to someone why season 8 of Game of Thrones is poorly written because they might have enjoyed it. I don't know that it follows that because they're having a positive experience, it means that to explain something to them that stops them from enjoying it is always a bad thing. And Rags has chosen an extreme example on purpose to prove that that is not definitively true. So now we need to draw a better line.
I just don't understand the
It's a
equivocation of
No, no,
Like
no, no,
I get
no,
what your
no,
point
no,
is. I
it's
get what
the
your point
methods.
is that
The methods are what's being equivocated.
there are people obviously who want to see Jews removed from the face of the earth. That's, you know,
Yeah, there's 7
that's
billion
proven.
people out there. Yeah.
And there were Nazis, you know, that committed atrocious crimes in Germany and across all of Europe. But I just,
Yeah, we have Muslims
I
doing it
mean,
today. It's a very real example that we can pull from.
I feel like,
Who are you to rob them of their enjoyment of the concept of the Holocaust? Is that your right?
no, because we have free speech laws in this country. So for me to, I mean, how do we, are we killing them? Like, how are we arguing against their points? Because that's just illegal. So I mean,
The exact same way that you use with anime.
how is that possible?
How is it possible?
Sure, I would have, okay, so in your example, I'd have a debate with somebody.
Yeah,
Is
if
what
you
you're
wanted,
saying.
if
I'd
you
have a
wanted to
debate with
convince
somebody.
someone that the Holocaust isn't probably something that you saying it's bad, essentially. The Holocaust is bad, right? And if you're also trying to explain this is why this anime is bad, well, you would use the same methodology for
Yeah,
both
but
of
the
those
same,
things.
yeah, and in the same light, and in the same, using the same logic, if somebody liked that anime, well, what if somebody's a Nazi? They also like that too. Are you arguing that what you're arguing is that it's bad to kill Jews? Essentially, is that what you're arguing?
No. I'm arguing here. I'm saying that because this whole thing stemmed from the idea that there seemed to be a very obvious contradiction in why it's okay to do the Rainbow Six thing and not for the anime thing, right? And so
Yeah,
now we're
but
getting
that's
into the methodology for, this stems after that.
right.
It stems
Yeah, but
from should you take people's enjoyment away, because you frame that as a bad thing to take away people's enjoyment.
sure, but you can't extrapolate that to me taking people's away. Me taking someone's enjoyment from a thing does not void their rights as a citizen of this country or of their lives. I
I
just
don't
like,
see how that
I
even
mean, because
follows.
I feel like, so okay, answer this. How do we rid Nazis' enjoyment of the Holocaust?
Oh, I would say we could make arguments with them and show that this is bad for the world, that it's not fair, that we should have foundational principles, and we could show the results of these principles in society, and we could use, apathy as a way to get them to understand how cruelty works in other people and how they would feel if it was done to them. We could use all sorts of things. In much the same way that you would convince somebody of anything
Right,
else,
but
except now we're doing it with the Holocaust.
I don't think that's the same thing. You can consume a
How is it
work of
different?
fiction. How do you consume the Holocaust? I mean, you
How
read
you look at
about
all
the
the
Holocaust.
sources. Just like with anime, you look at the source, you go to the source material, and we have a lot of it for the Holocaust. Look at this.
I feel like this is a very disingenuous
There's nothing
argument here.
disingenuous about it.
I
But if you
don't
feel so,
understand this argument.
why? No, it doesn't mean it's disingenuous just because you don't understand it.
I
Whichever
mean,
part you don't understand, I could elaborate on.
I don't know, man. I don't think you can, and especially in the gameplay example I mentioned, even the gameplay is different from the anime because you play a game, so your experience is going to be fundamentally different than experiencing an anime.
Right.
We can
So you've got a
disagree
source
to
material
different
and you're
extent.
pulling examples from it in order to explain to people why it is of a certain quality or whether it meets certain criteria. Right? How would that be different from the Holocaust?
Well, for one, Rainbow Six Siege is a game, so
Okay.
we're
So
not
the source
debating the merits of
material.
a game. We're debating the merits of a genocide.
No, oh yeah, we're comparing the merits of a game with the merits of a genocide. They're not equal in terms of their scope and their scale and their impact on civilization. This is about the methodology that is used.
Right, I understand the methodology.
Yeah, I could
Yeah,
replace
we
the
can
Holocaust with
argue. We
Polymorph
can.
or anything like that. It's the same thing.
I feel like you can't. I feel like a more accurate analogy would be to say, I'm going to take away the enjoyment of, I don't know, committing homicide, because there are people who enjoy killing other people. I think the example you mentioned with the Holocaust is
So it's okay to take
fun.
away people's enjoyment for certain things.
Yeah,
All
sure,
right.
of course. I mean, that was if that was all you wanted from the, if that was all you wanted, if that admission was all you wanted, I mean, I could have given you that before, because
Could have, but this was far more interesting.
I mean, my problem with the Holocaust analogy is not that, you know, of course, killing Jews or killing anyone is a bad thing. It's just that I don't know how you derive enjoyment from a fictional event. I mean, I guess you could, but
I think the Holocaust actually happened. Just for chat and everything.
Oh fuck! Oh shit! Yeah, no, I'm not. No, the Holocaust actually.
I got you.
I'm sorry.
Did you say you don't know how you would derive?
No. Oh no, this clip is going up somewhere.
I'll tell you why. Because if you really hate Jews and think they're subhuman, then you will derive enjoyment from them.
No. You said you don't know how they would derive enjoyment from a fictional event. Why not?
Yeah. Well, what I meant to say is I can see you deriving enjoyment from hunting down Jews right now and killing them, but deriving enjoyment, I think we're arguing semantics in here anyways. I think you can't derive enjoyment. Isn't enjoyment a present? So I mean, like, how could you derive enjoyment from? What I mean is, I don't know.
Even the idea of doing it, even the daydream of it, can bring you joy.
Yeah,
I guess for a moment, this entire thing is it started from a semantic distinction on how we use the word objective and what it can be used
Yeah, the
for.
whole thing is semantics anyway.
I think this is going up on
I honestly might agree with you on objective not being suitable here. I might use normative instead, but honestly...
Well, I think you could use common standard as well.
It's about the nature of people's enjoyment is really the closer basis than objectivity or not. It depends on how far back you go, I suppose.
That's when,
but
that's where the conversation's gone to, yeah.
Yeah, well, I heard somewhere that declaring something objectively good or bad is a conversation ender, which is weird, but
I've seen it used as a conversation ender. It certainly can be an argument ender. I mean, like, I'll give you an example here. I agree with it, sure, but in Rainbow Six Siege, there's a character called Lion. He's a broken piece of shit, and based on what he does in the game, none of us really deny that he is a broken piece of shit. If I start my argument out with that stance, then all I'm arguing is whether or not he's a piece of shit. I'm not arguing the merit of having a character like that in the game. I'm not arguing.
We agree with you here. Yeah, we don't like it when people just assert things and don't provide evidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, my argument is, even if you provide evidence as to why he's broken, and I believe me, I could provide you fucking pages of fucking college thesis on why Lion's a broken piece of shit. That doesn't, I mean, that makes it true for me, but that doesn't make it true for other people. There are other people.
There's only one truth. Wait. The idea here is that whether it is objectively true is obviously it exists whether or not we think it. However, this is our attempt to identify whether or not it is objective or not.
If you said he is broken, I said how, and you say by the standard of imbalance, he is more powerful than other characters. This is not something that is an opinion. It's provable. Damage values or his abilities have far more pragmatic use than literally any other character. Or I'm assuming you've got standards or values. I haven't played the game, so I don't know. But to give you an example that I gave before, I think this was, I don't know if this was major. I don't remember who I said this to, but hitboxes, like to match a model. I don't know if you've played DS2 or any of the games that are terrible, but when you have one that completely unmatches the box, when the entire circumstance is understanding your opponent in battle, like there is it's essentially a binary conversation. Did it match? Did it not? No. Objectively bad. Hitbox, because that's what a hitbox is. I try to run with what is intrinsic to the thing itself. Bring an argument down to its core.
I get what you're saying, but wouldn't it be more accurate to say the hitbox is inconsistent with the rest of the hitboxes in the game?
Well, at that point, I'd be like,
it wouldn't so much be about its inconsistency with other hitboxes in the game. It's the inconsistency with the model that.
If they were all 1 meter to the left of the model, like, I suppose I don't think that would ever, like, I don't think anybody would be able to account for that in a consistent manner, but at least you could actually say all the hitboxes are consistent in the game's design, and maybe there is an in-universe reason for that, as in there is what you see is not actually real, and that there's a ghost to the left of everything that's the actual hitbox. It would be a really bizarre justification, but you could probably do it that way, in the same way that a character getting their head blown off is an inconsistency for them to live, but if you had context in source, that identifies that as being a possibility because of the species they are or the circumstances, then that would be
Sure,
the
Resident
correction.
Evil 4.
Yeah. But at the base level, a hitbox matching the model, that's entirely... It's supposed to represent... Because the hitbox isn't even necessarily supposed to be a thing we recognize.
A bad movie that I enjoy, right? Like kind of as a guilty pleasure.
Sure.
So The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a universally reviled film for several good reasons.
I don't know where you're going with this, but I feel like that movie also is not a movie that I detest either, despite the writing.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
He said he doesn't detest it despite the writing either.
Yeah, despite the writing, yeah.
Yeah, so there are elements of it that I enjoy, but I admit that the writing fails to meet a standard that I would qualify as good writing. Like, I think that's kind of all over the place. You've got characters that are being set up to be significant, and then the payoffs aren't even in the film. There's too many villains. There's not really, like, development. Like they're focusing on making a cinematic universe that doesn't even happen after this film, so it's kind of a pointless film. There are still elements that you can enjoy in it regardless, but you can acknowledge that there are flaws.
Right. Yeah, I'll use your example. There's a game called Rogue Warrior, which is absolutely atrocious. It's just Mickey Rourke saying fuck for like 2 hours. And by any standard that I would have for different games, and the standard that I have for games, it's a 1 out of 10 game. It's a terrible piece of shit. But it provides fun and laughs in other ways. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I separate that aspect when I'm critiquing something. However, that doesn't mean that I feel like that is just the truth of the matter, if that makes any sense. So yeah, Rogue Warrior is a terrible, terrible game, right?
Yeah.
But it's a terrible game to me. It could be, I don't know, maybe it's a game of the year to somebody else. I have no fucking idea. And it's also what their standard is for rating the game. If they rate a game entirely on laughter and how much fun they had with the game, then it would probably actually be a 10 out of 10 game to them. So whatever we grade things by is different, and that's sort of my point.
Do you think there is no common ground in that regard?
Potentially. I'm sure there are groups of people who agree with certain things, and I think objective standards, the way that we may understand them or the way that they're popularly used, are derived from large groups of people liking something. But there's always going to be outliers and people who have, different.
Give you an example. I gave I Hate Everything of all people when he called me childish, condescending, and stubborn. About this whole topic.
Why did he do that?
Because he had never seen my videos and he believed the right opinion in Quentin reviews about what I say, and then I got him into a call and he like reversed all of it once I did be able to explain myself. I Hate Everything. You remember the whole fucking debacle. Anyway,
oh yeah, I remember. Who knows?
I know it's funny. I just played Hunt Down the Freeman for my channel after years of fans pestering me to play it, and that was quite an experience. He was actually one of the better parts of the game. Amazing.
So he was of the opinion that there is no such thing. He said it previously in his videos that something is objectively bad, so I was very confused that he said there's no such thing as something being objectively bad. And the one that cracked him, I'm curious what you'll think about this. So have you seen Suicide Squad?
Yes, sir. I own the movie.
So, when they introduce to, I guess, I can't remember if it's Arkham or whatever place they're going to, they have black text on a background that is very dark, to the point where most people can't even read it.
Yeah, of course,
so, I would be like, that's objectively terrible. You have writing that can't be read, you fucking idiots.
Well, see, that's where I agree with you. It is writing that cannot be read, whether or not that's objectively bad.
Would you agree that that's intrinsic?
I don't think I would. I mean, it sounds dumb, and this example in particular sounds dumb because I think it's a terribly edited film. I agree with you that I think it is a terribly edited film, but it's entirely possible that somebody places no importance on that aspect of the film.
No. Take it out of the film, and we're just now. I've used it as an example of it existing, and now we talk about writing that cannot be read is intrinsically bad because it's of the standard of the writing. Of what it is not what it is. And you'd be like, so isn't that binary? And it's like, well, take a label for something and then blur it by a little bit. Everyone can still read it. Blur it again. Gets to the point where most people can't read it. So now you're in territory of like 5 out of 10. It gets to the point where it's literally just a blotch. No one can read it. It's a 0. Objectively bad translates into, without my feelings being present, it is of a low writing standard by which I'm referencing progression.
See, but you're putting the standard in there. My definition of objective ends at whatever.
Right, but that's what language is. So, like, words mean multiple things. Once we've clarified what we mean, our perspective would...
I mean, yes, if that's your definition of objective, absolutely, then yes, it would be...
That's immense progress.
I think we did it.
I mean, well, here's the thing, guys. Okay, here's my problem. I've never... Like, if you guys want to consider something objectively bad, I'm not going to argue against... Because, I mean...
you would.
If you want to call something objectively bad, you're free to do so. It's my opinion on why you shouldn't call something objectively bad and why it's detrimental to the standard of critique that, or not to the standard, to the state of critique as we have it today. I mean, I don't think there can be multiple definitions of a word, but
okay, that's baffling
claim. I'm afraid.
What do you mean?
That's an interesting thing to say. You agree with the concept that we use the word objective for, and that's basically the big thing here.
That's because I was just going to say, to draw you back to saying a word only has like the one definition. Are you aware that a lot of people think objective means that everyone agrees on it?
Sure, but then they would
be wrong. Yes.
Is that in a dictionary anywhere? Because that's how I would define it. That's not.
I don't actually. I'm not actually sure if it is, but that's what Just Right.
Because
Just Right said
if
to
it
us.
Is, then they aren't wrong. Then they aren't obviously wrong about the definition of objective.
Well, but so you do agree then that words can have multiple definitions?
To try and steelman your point a bit, DX, are you trying to say that there is a difference between saying that X is inconsistent and saying X's inconsistency is bad?
Absolutely. That's been the entire...
We already know that part, because we've moved on to...
That's a fact-value distinction. That's a very big distinction. Make sure that you...
Yeah. Well, I feel like...
Well, that was what my whole thing
I feel like I've
about...
been saying that this entire time, that even if I feel something is X, that doesn't mean it is objectively X.
I was going to say that's rewound, because I made it to the writing thing where I defined that it would be considered binary, but you can stretch it out to a 0 to 10 with the writing one. You can do it with a hitbox, the degree to which it's tied to the model, and then plot progression, you can do that again. You could have this character's wearing blue shoes or he's wearing pink shoes a second ago, and that's it. Who the fuck cares? It has no effect on anything, unless the main villain looking at pink kills him. At that point, you'd be like, what the fuck? Where'd you get the pink shoes from? You know what I mean? Like, the progression, and it's all very relatable, as much as you could be like, how can you draw a value judgment? And it's like, well, it would be based on a wider context of how it's all framed, how in a scale it would be judged. Like, a broken brick in a house doesn't destroy the house, but how many bricks were broken? And then it does destroy the house if there's enough. And none of this stuff relies on how I feel. You might say, like, well, is 10 bricks enough to break it? And it's like, well, the most important payoffs of the film being... That's usually what a story is for. Everything we see is all tied together to create the... For example, we don't skip from... We meet Luke, and then it goes 10 years later or whatever the fuck, and then it cuts to him and Vader fighting, because we'd have no investment. We'd be like, who even are these people? Why are they fighting each other? What happens if one of them wins?
Yeah.
So everything...
In a lot of other films.
And this is the whole concept of plots versus subplots, right? So, like, everything's in favor of something, so, like, a subplot will technically only be in favor of its own sub-ending, but it would still be, all the stuff we saw was all for the purpose of that one payoff. So, again, with the pink shoes thing, it's like, we can draw conclusions irrelevant of our feelings from the standard of progression, and that's what we're using the word to mean, irrelevant of how you feel, essentially, and that's, as far as I'm aware, the primary definition, essentially. And then you'd be like, we've added good onto it, and I get that the surefire way to judge what good is just how much you liked it, but we're using what I assume is understood as the second definition, reaching a high standard, or being high within a standard.
Starting the story off with the First Order being the oppressive power in the galaxy was already the wrong way to start the story.
Cool.
I think you kind of just fuck yourself when you do the same story over again, even after the universe is already shrunk with the Emperor's death and Vader's death. So I feel like that was just instantly the wrong thing to do.